Oh my God, you have no idea. This is what we do now.
Honestly, it's kind of nice to see like an adult do something because like as a kid you can scream and yell and be like, "Hey, we don't want to die," and say things like that, and people like they're like, "Oh, but you don't know what you're talking about. You're a kid." So then having an adult say something, it makes all the difference.
I agree with you. Actually, something that I've been saying is that if every kid that is doing something now, and there's a lot of them, um, will could be able to convince their parents, which is usually at least two people, then that's a big number of people fighting together. So that's kind of the message that I send to other parents. Like instead of waiting for your kid to change things and make them better, you should get involved and support them and be part of a solution and not just expect anyone else to solve it for you.
Exactly. I wish it was a lot easier to get parents convinced. I know sometimes like for me, for instance, a lot it's very very difficult to get my parents convinced to like do anything with politics that's not exactly the side they're rooting for.
Well, there is a reality behind that, and this is the sad side of the story is that I listen a lot to my son today. Since he's not here, I've been trying to understand things that we discussed while he was here, and the message is very clear. And I think that that rebel side of teenagers is such a powerful tool to achieve goals that me and Patricia we try to use it as much as we can. So part of what we do is continuing with our parenting. It's a way for me to feel that Joaquin is still with me, and I invite really every single parent to start listening to their kids now, before it's too late, because you never know. So I'm going to keep on doing that. I promise, because they're listening to me. These old guys like me are starting to be very concerned about the future of their kids. So I need to take advantage of that situation to get them on board.
I think that's really important, especially with everything going on now. Do you mind giving us like a quick one or two sentence like statement on what Change the Ref is for some of our listeners that might not know?
Sure. Absolutely. ChangeTheRef, it's our nonprofit organization. The name is actually honoring our son Joaquin, who loved the game, basketball. And it's kind of calling the referees, in this case, the referees that are supposed to make the right calls are our politicians, our representatives in DC. So change the ref is that like a way for us to empower the youth and make sure they understand and they know that they can make the final call when it comes to choosing the next referee and maybe having a fair game with better calls. That's where it's coming from. Again, honoring Joaquin, honoring the game, and honoring the youth.
Thank you. Last time we spoke, your organization was just beginning. Can you tell me about how you've expanded from, say, the walls of demand and posts into letters to your one man show that's coming up this Friday, Guac, My Son, My Hero?
Yeah, this is like any other project. You learn a lot every single day, and there's no difference between what's happening to us and what happens to any other movement. So, because we use art as our main way to connect with people, we've been bringing different ways to put art into our course. And then that's how we came using paintings and murals, and that became a thing from Change the Ref. We have 37 of those murals as of today. We also work a lot with the advertising industry. You just mentioned one of the projects, Posting to Letters. Just like that one, we have at least four more. And now we have theater as a way to also connect with people. So, and this is not it. I'm pretty sure we're going to learn more and more ways to send our message, and of course it identifies who we are. This is very legit, and I'm glad that it's legit and it's authentic. because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this.
I think it's really great that you're using art, especially because you don't see that being used really much because it's used in such a unique way. Because you're sitting there and you're putting it out there and you're like, hey, this is a problem. What are you going to do about it? And it catches people attention. Like I sit there and I've shown my bosses here the videos that you have up of the walls or when you 3D printed Joaquin and had him in Times Square. Like I've shown people those and they've always been so shocked and they're like, they're using art for this. But do you think that gets your message across a little bit better?
Yeah, ways of doing uh, could be, and there's like a template when it comes to society responding to these tragedies, these realities, like gun violence in our case. And there's a few options. I mean, most of them go into the political side and rely on politicians to solve the problem. Some others stay on the legal side and they just get more involved into the new laws and writing new ways of changing things. And some others, like me, are probably a little more rebel. We don't take this as easy as others do. We don't want to follow a template, and I think that the connection between what we do. I'm 52 years old, okay, but I've been in this country for only 17 years, so that turns me into a 17-year-old in a way.
Mm-hmm.
And as just as another 17-year-old is not willing to take these as the place that they need to grow up and turn into adults and raise their families, I also refuse to accept that. So I'm rebel, and I think we have many things in common. I think I find myself with more things in common with that new generation that is emerging, that is asking for changes, that is making sure that the planet is a better place, that is making sure that health is important, and that is also making sure that gun violence is not going to be part of our future. So I feel, again, very comfortable in an uncomfortable situation, of course, but I feel very comfortable being able to be in such an honest way a messenger, and I use graphics because they also create impact, and that's cool.
I definitely think using the graphics and the art really helps your message stay stronger in people's minds, just from speaking from experience. You mentioned that you moved here like 17 years ago, and I think that's really interesting, and it almost makes your message a little bit stronger because you didn't grow up in the United States, and a little bit of like a background of growing up here. Like when I was a kid, like we would sit there and they would put us in lockdown drills. I knew how to like hide from a potential person coming into my school since before I could read at a third grade level. Like they were showing us 911 tapes from emergencies so like you would realize what to do at those times. And it just became the norm here. And like growing up, I remember like sitting there in like high school and looking up at the TV screen and then seeing like kids walking out of school with their hands up and just sitting there and be like, well, this is America. I guess that's how it is. And then after Parkland, I realized that other kids were actually angry about it because I could sit there and yell to my friends and my family about how it's not right that this is happening. But, you know, if one person's yelling, it just sounds like one person yelling. But if you get a group of people, it makes a difference. And I remember I was in the UK for a radio conference this summer, and one of the people there looked at me. He's from England, and he said, Ashley, like, why does the United States have all these problems? Like, they say they're so great, and then like your kids are dying at malls, schools, movie theaters. And I sit there and I told him, I'm like, because no one, like, there's people in government that are getting paid for this, and we have to change their minds, and there's people working on it, young people, adults, but we grew up like this, so it's hard for us to imagine a life without that violence here. And I think it's like you came here 17 years ago, so you're sitting here and you're like, hey, like, this is not normal for us, and like we should make a difference. And I think that's really, really powerful that you come here and you're like, hey, I live here and we're going to change it to make it a safer place for not only my family but other families.
not only that. I mean, I can't even say that not only for my family but also for other families. Actually, the right message it's not anymore for my family and
Hmm.
just for others' family because believe it or not, I choose to move to this country, and the main reason was to make sure that my kids were in a safe environment. I was ignoring many things by then that today I know. You're right, just said it. I mean, the American pop culture got used to the gun culture as part of their day to day regular life. And that's not another thing than gun manufacturers, gun lobby, making sure that things won't change because there's a lot of money behind this business. And even if it's on the risk of losing lives, they don't really care. And that's the only way to explain this epidemic. There's no other way to sustain this reality than the money that it makes for some manufacturers and for some politicians, of course. So as long as we keep on thinking that that's a new norm, we won't be able to change it. We have seen. I did a research a couple of weeks ago. I was invited to an event in New York, and I went back 50 years ago, which is kind of when I was learning how to walk.
Hmm.
And you see how United States of America has been playing with power between blue and red, almost in an even way, like same amount of people representing the House, same amount of people from the other side representing the Senate, and even the White House. And nothing has happened. So this is beyond politicians. I don't think they are able yet to find a solution. So
Hmm.
we need to put pressure, 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 and more pressure on them, and let them understand that they are not the main thing here. They need to follow what we are asking them to follow. That game of promising people that if you vote for me, I will do this. I don't believe it anymore. The new way of doing this is what we want. You better go ahead and do it because otherwise we're going to vote you out. And that's how I see my friends, my young friends that I have a lot, by the way.
Hmm.
This is coming from them. They explain me how the new rules, the new book is being written by them, and I kind of like that. And I'm so glad that I'm able to represent Joaquin Oliver as my son, my beautiful son, that is still fighting for this, not as a victim, but as an activist.
All right, I'm going to pivot a little bit so we can talk about Friday night, so we can let our listeners know
So
just a little bit. I don't want to give away too much about what they're going to be seeing on Friday, but of course, I would like to talk about it a little bit. So, what can we expect to experience in New York City?
listen, we've been in New York several times doing different things. This is like before and after, I will say.
Hmm.
This coming weekend, it's really experience.
Hmm.
That's the way to explain it in one word. And you're gonna cry,
Hmm.
maybe. You're gonna laugh for sure. You're gonna know Joaquin better. You're gonna probably identify yourself with Joaquin, or with Patricia, or with me. There's a lot of real life experiences between a father and a son, a mother and a son, in a very light way. There's no pressure. I don't think it's a political statement. What I'm trying to make on stage, I think it's more a social statement of how do we feel better? How can we turn our life into an easier way of living and enjoying life in an authentic way with authentic arguments. And of course, we're going to talk about gun violence.
Hmm.
And of course, we're going to touch the tragedy, the day that happened, but always in a direction of giving the audience the chance to to do something after the show. It's the call to action is going to be very clear, and it's up to you what you're going to do. But I'm pretty sure you will do something that night. So I'm very excited. It's New York again, my favorite city and Joaquin's favorite city by far.
Hmm.
And yeah, we're gonna have fun that night.
I think it's going to be really great to get to know Joaquin, you, and his relationship with him and with you and him and his mother. It's going to be great to see that other side that we haven't seen as much through other demonstrations because this is more of like a played out show. I think that's just going to be really interesting. I think it's going to be really powerful to watch. You sort of answered this a little bit, but I'm going to ask it anyway to see if you want to expand. Um, but what does the show mean to you? What can people take away from it?
The show to me is. I'm gonna go back to my first answer. Um, I refuse to stop being a father. Okay,
Hmm.
I am not convincing myself that I'm done as a dad. There's many things that I can still do as a father. As a father of Joaquin,
Hmm.
and this is a great opportunity for me to show that not only to myself but also to a big audience. And I think that if I'm able to show that I'm still a father and I still have a responsibility as a father, I'm pretty sure that an actual father of a kid that is still alive and it's gonna really it's gonna somehow approach in a different way to his kid or to her kid because the value that we are able to put on that stage about relationship between fathers and sons or daughters, um, it's incredible. The way that we explain it, the positive way that we are using this message, regardless how I feel, by the way,
Hmm.
which is not this is not therapeutic for me at all. That's not the reason why I'm doing this. Nothing that I do is therapeutic at all. Um, and it really doesn't matter how I feel because every time I feel sad or bad, I remember how Joaquin felt the day that he was shut down. So there is no pain in me that could in any way um, reach that level of pain. Um, so I try to have fun while I do this, and sometimes I succeed, and sometimes I keep on feeling bad. But I always make sure that whoever is watching this, whoever is there in this interactive experience, is taking something home. And the number one thing is a better relationship between them and their kids. And if it's a kid, a better relationship between them and their parents.
All right, I think that's really important. I didn't realize before speaking to you that these performances aren't therapeutic, and I feel like it almost like sitting here. I'm like, wow, okay, so it hurts, but you're still doing it because you and Joaquin, you're changing the world, and it's really magical to see. I don't know if that's the right word, but you know,
Well, I like that one. I love that word. I hope it's the right one.
yeah,
It's really,
I'm like,
I'm totally, yeah, I'm totally into the emotion side of life. So those kind of words are actually expanding the, the human way of reaching things. So thank you. That's great. I'm gonna take that as a compliment.
yeah, no, it definitely is magical. Hold on. Yeah, cuz seeing a father-son bond that strong is and it transcends everything. And you sit there and you bring Joaquin with you every day and you sit there and you make these changes and you show people like he's not here right now, but he is because look at what he's doing. Look at what we're doing. Look at these letters that you're sending to Congress. Look at these walls. Like this is him. This is his activism. I'm just the one doing it.
Correct.
It's purely just magical to watch. I can't even think of any other better way to describe it because I don't know, it's just the way you channel it. It's just really just good to see. It's nice to see it. It's
Well,
something I
I
look
appreciate it.
forward to seeing.
I think that the most important thing that could happen to any human, it's having a kid and being able to really love in an unconditional way another person. There's no way to replace a son or a daughter. There's no such a thing as a Match.com or anything that you could search for a son and then you just replace that person. Um, so the only way to feel a little better is to stay connected. And I'm also holding to my faith. And at some point, I believe and I really hope that I'll be again with Joaquin. But I don't have any rush on that one because there's a lot of things that need to be done here.
So, what was the writing process for the show like? How did you decide what elements to put together?
Well, I do have a script, okay,
Hmm.
but I have a director here, and then James Spencer. James
Hmm.
told me, Manny, tell me the story, and we'll see how we put it together. So I did. I told him things that I did with Joaquin, things that I thought will be important for me to tell everyone. Music, jokes, things that were totally about the relationship between me and Joaquin. And then he came back with, he was able to have, break that into scenes, scene one, scene two, scene three, and I had no idea that I could do that. So now I have this story, put it together in an order of scenes. So we did some rehearsals in New York,
Hmm.
probably like 5 months ago, and then it's like a filter process. I will do my rehearsal, and James will make sure that he will remove anything that I didn't say, and he will add things that I said.
Hmm.
And once you do that more than 10 times, at some point you reach a story that it's only what you need to say, and that's what we have today. And I don't think it's a final script. I don't think it's a final because there's always something new. There's always something that is connected to that specific city. And in the case of in New York's case next week, there's a lot of actual local aspects because I was in New York with Joaquin several times,
Hmm.
and I have my own New York stories with Joaquin. So those are part of the show in New York. And lucky me, I was able to travel a lot with Joaquin. So there's many places that have their own stories about Joaquin Oliver and that specific city or state. That's how the process of the storyteller was developed.
Oh man, that's amazing. I cannot wait to see this show on Friday. Um, do you think it's gonna be recorded for people who are gonna like miss the show or would like to look back and watch it at another time to say show other people? Maybe not this specific show, but a show in the future.
We're going to be recording. We record every show
Hmm.
for learning process more than anything else. But we we're going to go on tour on January.
Hmm.
Probably that's one of your questions later. But it's and the plan for next year is to be to reach other markets. Like next year is 2020. I think we need to start spreading this voice in the most effective way possible. So we are partnership with Live Nation,
Hmm.
and that's going to be a big move. We will announce this. Well, I'm already telling you, but
Hmm.
the whole tour cities and dates will be announced after the New York show.
Hmm.
And yes, eventually we're going to have a whole like documented, um, probably 1 hour 20, 1 hour 30 of the whole show itself, and hopefully be able to send it to some TV stations so they can share it. That's part of the learning process again. But see, there's no excuse. I mean, we'll visit your city. Now it's going to be up to you to show or not.
Hmm. You actually did answer my next question.
Okay.
Yeah, which was actually perfect. So, for the final interview question, if there's something you could say to people thinking about attending, what would it be?
You have to see this. I think that we own this to Joaquin and to the other 40,000 victims that die every single year because of gun violence. So this is not only for Joaquin, but for everyone else. This is beyond schools. This is beyond Parkland. This is beyond Joaquin. And this is beyond me.
Mhm.
I don't know if I'm going to be able to have another interview of this because I don't know where gun violence is going to hit us. If you would have called me 3 days ago,
Hmm.
probably we wouldn't be able to mention that there was a shooting in a school in California.
Oh God.
And but now we can say that,
There was
and
another
sadly,
one.
it's true.
Yeah. There's another one last
So
night about like a few hours away from here.
there you go.
Oh.
So we have to do something, and this show gives you gives shows you options of things that we can do. So it's not about selling a ticket or not, or filling a space or not. I think it's about sharing experience, and I would love everybody to be there.
All right. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day